Okay, Unit 10, Lecture 2B. So in 1954, the Supreme Court handed down its decision in the case of Brown versus Board of Education of Topeka, Kansas. You just remember Brown versus Board of Ed. In this decision, the Supreme Court declared racial segregation in public schools unconstitutional. It said public school segregation violated the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment, and that's where a lot of the NAACP cases are going to go towards, that 14th Amendment. In short, the Brown decision said that segregated schools inherently, by their nature, were unequal and must desegregate. The Brown decision applied not only to the case from Topeka, Kansas, but also to Prince Edward County, Virginia school case. Now, important to realize, Supreme Court hands down its decision, nothing gets done right away. It's going to take enforcement. Enforcement comes from the Executive Act, okay? So just because the Supreme Court decided something doesn't mean anything happened, right? So in 1957, 3 years later, the first group of black students went to their school in Little Rock, Arkansas, all right? Only to be met by white mobs at the door, being backed by the governor. The decision in Brown needed enforcement, and President Dwight D. Eisenhower did what was necessary. He took this responsibility, he did his duty, and nationalized the National Guard of Arkansas, okay, and used them to protect the black students, the Little Rock Nine, okay? The National Guard escorted these students and provided safety for them for their entire first year of school. Okay, so immediately after World War II, I'm going to move to Virginia a little bit more now. Virginia was still part of the Solid South. Okay, the Solid South was an expression coined or started in the early 1900s to indicate the Democratic Party's control of Southern politics. Okay, so now the Democratic Party back early on in the 60s is much different than the Democratic Party today, and Republicans and Democrats switch planks and issues quite often in an effort to appeal to more voters. Okay, so early in the 1900s, the South is solidly Democratic. Okay, Senator Harry F. Byrd Sr. led the organization of the Democratic Party leaders who controlled Virginia's politics. Okay, under Senator Byrd's leadership, Virginia's governor and state legislature adopted the policy of massive resistance. Now, make sure you know the difference between massive retaliation and massive resistance. Okay, so under massive resistance, the Virginia General Assembly, okay, the name of Virginia's state legislature, passed state laws that made it illegal for Virginia public schools to desegregate, even when they were under federal court order to do so. Big constitutional issue right here, okay? To desegregate schools meant to allow white children and African American children to attend the same school. As a last resort, Virginia's massive resistance laws instructed Virginia's governor to close Virginia public schools rather than permit court-ordered racial integration. Okay, integration was a synonym for desegregation. Both terms meant that black and white children would attend the same school. Virginia's massive resistance movement reached a climax in 1959. The governor closed several public schools rather than obey federal court orders to integrate them racially. In addition, upper and middle-class white Virginians established private academies to avoid sending their children to racially integrated public schools. During the 60s and 70s, many white families moved from cities to suburbs in a search of predominantly white public schools, and this pattern, this is called white flight, remember the term, white flight, okay, from urban to rural school systems, and it's still continuing in some areas today. All right. So, however, Virginia's governor soon realized that massive resistance program was doomed to failure. He reversed Virginia's massive resistance policy and accepted federal court-ordered desegregation on a case-by-case basis. By the mid-70s, Virginia had completely ended its dual school system. Virginia no longer had separate public schools for African American children in the 1970s. Okay, it takes them that long. 54, it was Brown versus Board. Okay, all Virginia children attended the same public schools by the mid-70s. The Supreme Court's decision, Brown versus Board of Education, had created social revolution in the American South, and the Brown decision had shown that the courts could be used as an effective tool to combat racial prejudice, okay, and that the Supreme Court could reshape American society, okay. So from Gandhi to Martin Luther King Jr., the backbone of the civil rights movement rests on civil disobedience and legal fighting. By embracing nonviolent tactics such as boycotts, sit-ins, bus rides, marches, and mass violations of the law peacefully, jail not bail, the South is forced to integrate, okay. And we're going to continue in a second.